So you're scrolling through Instagram, right? Everybody likes those luxury mansions, those luxury mansions. I mean, kids have built thousands of dollars worth of income on these real estate luxury Instagram handles, right? Guess what? On this podcast, I have the actual builder that swings the hammer, has the concrete poured, builds the foundation. All of those houses, this guest builds them. Stay tuned. You know why? We're talking real estate, real estate, real estate. All right, Brian Teyssier here. I am with KMR. Kyle?
How's it going?
So what I want to do is, as I always do on all my podcasts, when I present a guest to you, it's not just going to be some random person that wants to come on. It's going to be somebody that knows what the they're talking about. So this guy here builds a bunch of stuff, but the reason I know him is because he is building a luxury and ultra luxury houses that my brokerage is listing for the developers. So I thought, you know, new construction podcast, what an opportunity to talk to somebody that's building some of these houses you see on Instagram that you're drooling over and you're hitting that like button and you're sharing with all your people. This guy's actually building them. So I wanted to get him in. He's going to tell you a little bit about who he is, how long you've been in the business, you know, what's the biggest residential house you have built, you're currently building, what got you started, what mistakes have you made. These are all things that my clients want to know. So, you know, who are you? What have you done? How'd you get to this point?
Perfect. So yeah, my dad started the company back in 1986. So we've been in business a little over 35 years. Started out building shopping centers. We built like our first project, Intercoastal Mall in North Miami Beach, and then we built a lot of the arcade shopping centers in Sunny Isles. So the first decade of the business, we were focused on shopping centers. So
good business back then.
Oh, great business.
Is it still good business?
Right now it's a little tougher because you have Amazon a lot more. Yeah, and you have a lot of businesses too that are more, they're working from home or
gotcha.
You know, ordering exactly. Amazon's a big thing, so there's not as much shopping. But we started off in the business working for a developer where, you know, it was all about getting the shopping centers up and done. Because the quicker we got the shopping centers done, the quicker he had tenants in there and he was turning over to the next shopping center.
Right.
So it's kind of like we adopted that same mentality into all of our type projects, whether it's high-end residential, whether it's multifamily, whether it's retail centers. It was all about getting the job done quick to turn it over so a tenant could pay rent and the landlord or the owner can move on to the next property.
Right.
And that's kind of how we built our business.
So I'm going to stop you before you continue because I love the track we're going on. How long does it take to build a shopping mall?
So we turn them around in anywhere from 5 months to 8 months. Yeah. Believe it or not, shopping centers are a lot easier to build.
Strip, we're talking about strip ones. Are the one level?
Yeah, because it's all either tilt up. So the longest process is your foundation. But once your foundation is done, then it's just you're putting up tilt panels. You have it's usually a bar joist system. So it goes up fairly quick.
And we're not taking into consideration permitting and all that, right?
No, so permitting is on its own. Permitting, you're probably 4 to 6 months of permitting between permitting and plans, depending on the city.
Jeez.
A city plays a big factor.
That's not bad at all. I mean, I'm from Pittsburgh. Just to do one residential house takes about 8 months to a year to get through the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, it's all about who you know, having a good architect. If the architect is known in the city, then their plans are, you know, the reviewers, of course, if the reviewer is familiar with the architect, it's either a good or a bad thing. It's a good thing if they're known to have the detail, do the right things, because they're going to be less the review process is just going to be smoother because there are going to be less mistakes in there. So the quicker you could turn, the more detail you have in the plans, and the less questions the city's going to have, and the quicker you could turn it around in the city.
And you know, I just talked about my last podcast before you, and then we touched on working with experts. And my other podcast guy said, you know, he's talking about realtors. Everybody has their real estate license nowadays. You have some realtors that sell 2 houses a year, then you have some that sell a whole bunch. You want to go to the expert. You know, you want to go to the heart surgeon that just does 2 heart surgeries a year. You don't want to go to the builder that just builds 1 year. You don't want to use the architect that just does, you know, the architect's an actress. They do nails, and they do architect as well. You want to go to the professionals. It may cost you a little extra, but if you look at it in the end, you know, it takes less time, it takes less money to use a professional, use the expert. So good point on that.
100%, yeah. It's people knowing what they're expert in and then sticking to it.
And you can go to bed at night knowing you hired the architect that if a problem comes up, they're not going to be blowing up your phone because they don't know what the answer
100%,
is.
yeah. It's one thing I learned from our clients is the less time they're worrying about problems, the more they're focused on building their next venture, whatever it is. So,
and you can tell he uses experts because look how young he looks. He's really 182 years old, but since he gets so much sleep and he's so comfortable, he looks like the way he does. So anyway, back to the history of how you got to where you are. Went through the shopping mall phase.
Yeah, and then so a lot of clients we built for. We also did a lot of high end between those stages because of
residential homes.
High end residential homes.
So how do you get started on that? Who's the first person that looks at you as a shopping mall constructor and says, I think I want him to build my high-end home?
Because a lot of times what we're very good at understanding is there's a difference between commercial and residential.
Totally.
So the subcontractors we use for commercial are more production oriented. They're more
speed.
Focused on get it done, because when you're doing a shopping schedule shopping center,
right,
schedule and quality kind of balance each other out. They're just as important in a sense, right? You're not worrying about the wall as an example of being is level 5 because you want to get the shopping center done, but when you're doing a residential home, a high end, you see the job and then you kind of build around the job, right? So we know if this is the end goal is to build an extremely high end where the finishes are level 5, then we know we have to bring in the subcontractors that could meet what the project.
So for I assume our audience doesn't know anything about what we're talking about. There's a level 5.
Yeah, okay, so good point. So you have different levels, of course, in construction, right? Like level 1 being the least to level 5 being the highest.
Quality.
So when you're doing highest quality, when you're doing a shopping center, for instance, you're usually level 2, level 3. Not a lot of times you don't do level 1, but when you're doing a high-end home, every aspect of it needs to be level 5. Because to the 1/8 of an inch makes the biggest difference. So it's important that your subcontractors pay attention to that little detail.
So in this, let's just say you know nothing about real estate or what we're talking about. Next time you go into, for example, and I see this all the time, in a restaurant, look at the tile work, if you're a man, in the urinal area. The tile work is definitely not a level 5 quality.
Nope.
Look at an airport. Bathrooms in the airport or the towel on the floor in the airport, not a very high level of quality. And that's acceptable. And it's funny because I go into a lot of luxury stuff, houses, residential houses, and I know what good quality is. And then I go into a TGI Fridays and I see this shit towel work and I'm like, oh my God, how does that pass? But now after having this conversation, there's a level of expectation, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So our contracting companies designated these different levels officially or unofficially?
Yeah, I mean, most don't, but being in the industry for so long, you kind of know the guys that could produce level 5 versus the guys that can't produce level 5.
So there's no governing body that says annually pay a due and you're level 5.
No, and usually
there should be.
Yeah, but yeah, usually it's usually and you can kind of tell by price. In construction, you never want to go with the cheapest guy because you get what you pay for.
100%.
You know
cheap comes out expensive.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
Right.
Start using
measure twice, cut once.
Yeah, that's what intrigued me with you. We were at one of the job sites and I noticed you were out there measuring. You were taking a look at everything, and most realtors, I've never seen a realtor do that before, so I was impressed,
Appreciate
asking about the finishes and and that's going
know
the
your
extra
product,
mile.
man.
Yep.
So anyway, how did this first person, I'm always fascinated, like one of these days I'm gonna get my first $30 million listing and I can't wait to tell the story how that happens. The story hasn't happened yet, but we're waiting. So I'm fascinated in the story. How did you get your first luxury residential job?
So it was actually when I can remember, right? I grew up, my dad started in '86, but me and my brother grew up on job sites, like sweeping floors every summer when we were 10, 11, 12. I guess from what I can remember, our first biggest high end was probably for the Starkman family. They owned Epicure, Jerry's Famous Deli, the old Rascal House, which is like a landmark in Miami Beach, Sunny Isles. And it was probably his house in Bay Harbor that sold for the highest price per square foot at the time. And just seeing him, the difference between when we're building one of his markets versus residential, you kind of notice how attention to detail is everything. Every little thing matters. It's and paying attention to those little details, because those little details affect the
100%,
the big picture.
100%. So, how much was the house?
That sold for $7.5 back then, which was a while back.
Right.
But then we've done stuff at Aquilina Mansions, which
really,
which was of course the highest finishes. They did onyx everywhere. So there's a major difference in that.
All right, so if you watch my pros and cons videos, buyers, it's a pretty good option in this crazy market to buy something brand new. Either it's already being built, brand new construction, or something you can get on early. You pick your finishes, etc. You want to contact the Brian Sells brand. No matter where you're at, if you're in the Pittsburgh market, if you're in the Southeast Florida market, I don't care if you're over in Wisconsin. I've got spider webs of colleagues just like me across the United States and Canada, so I can refer you to somebody that can meet your needs. If you are a buyer that is struggling to get a house, contact the Brian Sells brand now. Funny story is, I had a contact at Aquilina, not the mansions, I don't think. The new buildings that I think they're finally just filling. And they gave me a tour, a construction tour, and you had to go on one of those elevators that are attached to the outside. And for those realtors that go on that every day, I was like, what's going on? And they took us in the bathrooms, and there was no drywall anywhere.
Nope.
Maybe the ceiling had drywall, I'm not sure. But they're like, every wall was slabs of like the highest end granite.
Yeah, that's what they do. That's what we did. It was all on like lit up onyx.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing, expensive stuff.
So funny story, my bathroom back home in Pittsburgh in my condo, guess what kind of walls I got?
Onyx.
Granite, not onyx, granite, but I got all granite walls. I'll send you a picture whenever I get back home. It's still being finished, but I'm so inspired by that.
Yeah.
And in different markets, you don't see this level of luxury, and when you see it, it's mind blowing. I've been down here for 2 years off and on, and my mind is still blown by some of the luxury. And that's why I can't wait to see how Pelican comes out to see what kind of luxury stuff. It's like there's no expense spared. If you can dream it.
We could build it.
It could be done.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. If you dream it, we build it.
It's absolutely mind-boggling. Good.
No, I was just going to say absolutely right. And then you see the difference between, that's when you get into the little detail, right? There's some developers that we work for where, every little detail is important. They spend the extra money because, they get the extra out of it. Then there's others that's more, bottom line, in a sense, you're still putting high-end finishes. I always like to use like a BMW as an example. Okay. You have the 2 Series to the 8 Series. So how I like to, go about is, what exactly are we looking for? Are we looking for a 5 Series? Are we looking for 2 to 3 Series? Or are we going 8 Series in the kitchen and then 4 or 5 Series elsewhere? And it's a good way to get an idea of exactly what the type
everything has levels. Everything in life has levels. The contractors level 1 through 5. The developers looking for in a kitchen a level 8 and a level 2 over here. Reallocate money, etc. So tell me, who is your clientele? Who do you work for?
So most of our clients, developers, of course, where they're looking to, of course, increase their bottom line, to have turnover. So once we qualify the project, we, depending on the developer, like when we're building in Orlando, we're doing 800 units out there. It's multifamily, it's rentals. So we're looking for something that can last, a long time, that's maintenance friendly, but something that's cost effective too at the same time, right? So something that's not going to break, that's going to last, but we don't have to worry about when the tenant moves out. There every single year we're going in, cleaning it, and having to spend money. What's something that we can get the most use out of?
Right.
So Yeah.
Residential developers, for like example, Pelican, do they typically hire you to build spec homes, or is it a combination? Sometimes they already have a buyer.
So yeah, right now we're doing about 14, 15 spec homes that we have going on under construction.
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, anywhere from price range from $7 million to I would say 30 million.
Spec homes, or just a combination of spec and?
No, just spec homes.
What?
Yeah, so we're building a lot right now.
What geographic areas?
It's pretty much from Miami Beach to Jupiter.
So you got that for what's
as far as spec homes goes, and then of course Orlando, that's multifamily, but luxury spec homes, it's the Tri-County area.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, my mind is blown. That's such a huge amount of work. Because how long does a Pelican take?
So a project like Pelican is like 12 to 14 months.
That's it?
Yeah, you could build. The thing is making sure we talk about the importance of like having an architect, right? A good architect, and having a good architect means that there's detail on the plans that allows us to be successful in building.
Right.
So it really factors in on the architect plays a big role, the designer plays a big role in making sure that everything is spec'd out and finalized prior to certain drop dead dates. So what we do is we establish drop dead dates, and on those drop dead dates is certain things like, okay, your kitchen needs to be picked out, your appliances need to be picked out. So these drop dead dates allow us to maintain the schedule and not go off, because momentum is everything on a project.
Right.
You can't lose momentum.
And that leads me into, how has the pandemic affected you guys as far as supplies and labor? So
of course, in the beginning, we were affected a little bit, but we're very calculated on everything we do. So as soon as we saw it was a problem, we solved it by just ordering all the material ahead of time. We have a big warehouse. So
standard would be to order as you need?
Yeah,
pre-pandemic?
Standard, yeah. You were getting most things, like as an example, metals and certain items, from commodity items to doors, and you were getting them in 4 weeks to 6 weeks. Now it's almost tripled. Like appliances as an example, you're 13, 14 month lead time right now. So we're ordering those before we even
warehousing it.
Yeah, before we even start the project, because you need to.
That's what a good developer does. We have a developer in Pittsburgh. I'm on condo buildings, Lawrenceville Lofts, and the builder there, they typically ordered as they needed, and they rented a warehouse, ordered for all the units, which I'm sure they were not happy about, because it has to cost some shing, right? And stick it all in this warehouse.
Oh, yeah.
But when they needed it.
Yeah, because all it takes is one little thing, and it slows 100%. The project down. So if you make sure you have everything, it keeps the project rolling.
100%.
And you don't have to remobilize. You mobilize once, and then you demobilize when you're done. So
that's still mind-boggling. How big roughly is Pelican? Almost 11,000 square feet?
It's 10,400 under air, and then 14,600 gross.
And I mean, even with all the supplies and stuff, only a year to build that?
Yeah, on that one would be at about 13, 14 months.
What's the slowest part of the process of the physical construction, you think?
It's probably the switch over from structural to, starting your roughs, because in that meantime, you have a lot of things happening. You have your windows and doors getting installed, and then you're also trying to start your interiors at the same time, but you have to make sure you're dried in order to start doing your roughs. So it's probably that transition from structural to completion to getting it dried in and then starting your roughs.
How are the local municipalities as far as coming out and inspecting the plumbing and electric? Are they pretty good?
Yeah, you definitely have your cities that are great to work in, and then you have your cities that are tougher to work in. I'm not going to say any those names right now.
What's your greatest? What's your toughest? You can shout out the greatest.
I would say Sunny Isles Beach by far. Sunny Isles Beach in Fort Lauderdale has been really good too, but Sunny Isles Beach, they run a very efficient building department. They're very pro-development in a sense, pro-contractor, where if there's issues on the plans and the architect and the contractor and the city aren't seeing eye to eye, City of Sunny Isles will call everybody to their table, get everyone to the table and just say, hey, what do we got to do? This is what the miscommunication is. Let's figure it out. Let's work together. And that's probably one of the big reasons why City of Sunny Isles has had so much success over the past 15, 20 years, because their building department is run efficient.
That's it. I mean, that's basically like an arbitration. When you have a group of people that can't come up with the right answer, you put them all together, and by golly, it eventually ends up working out.
Solve the problem.
And that is so smart. I mean, I'm involved in so many different cities. And it's just, man, I swear they're working against the builder, the developer, the buyer, the realtor. It's like they get off on making our lives miserable when we're trying to provide freaking housing, guys. We're not trying to, I don't know, launch rockets or grow weed crops. We're trying to housing. Let's get
But if you
together.
wanted to, we'll build it.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so let's move on. What else? What other things do you guys, could somebody hire you for to build?
So I guess anything that's spec related. I mean, you have different type of builders, right? You have a custom home builder, which, you know, of course, when we're doing custom to a certain extent, but a custom home builder that's going to sit there, work with the architect on design, work with you and holding your hand and stuff and going throughout the process. So you have builders that kind of focus on the custom home building. Then you have builders that kind of focus on renovations because they developed a system for renovations. Mm-hmm. Usually a general contractor won't do, some do, but most won't do new construction and renovations because it doesn't allow you to really systemize your procedures in a sense because there's so many steps that are different
for renovations. There's so many variables.
Yeah, so many variables.
Do you have you knocked down houses, done infill where you knock them down?
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
A lot of that.
Yeah, so
because you do a lot of waterfront.
We do a lot of waterfront.
And
yeah,
most all waterfront has been occupied for decades, so
Yeah.
you got to knock it down.
It's, especially right now. Now you're knocking down, before you were knocking down houses built in the 60s, 70s. Now you're knocking houses down that are 15, 20 years old because there's so much money that's coming to Florida. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's mind-boggling.
It is.
All right, you are a developer, you're a builder, you're a flipper, you just don't know what agent to hire. You want to hire the Brian Sells brand. Why is that? Because just like this Measure Twice, Cut Once podcast that is specific to new construction, I have a buyer client list that is looking for a flip, is looking to build a brand new house with a 2-car garage, or looking for a luxury manse. They're going to be watching this podcast. So I have those buyers. It makes sense to hire the Brian Sells brand to list your properties. You want to get me in super early. I like to be in the very beginning so I can help point you to what buyers want. And another perk that a lot of my flippers, developers, and builders absolutely love is I do all the social media for them. The Lawrenceville Lofts, I'm doing the social media there. You could pay a company to thousands of dollars to do social media. They don't know real estate. They're not on site. They just don't get it. I have experience since 2007 doing this. I will be automatically doing my social media, and by default, your social media gets done too. So if you're a builder, developer, or flipper in the Southeast Florida market or the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania market, contact the Brian Sells brand now. So how much fun is, as a kid, the little kid in me has got to ask you, how much fun is it to get in a bulldozer and knock down a freaking house?
Fun.
Do you physically do it?
I don't physically do it. My brother was always interested in that though. My brother always got into the big. I never did. Right.
I want to do it. Next time you knock down a house, let me know.
I'll bring you.
I want to come along. That would be just so much fun.
Be a way to cut costs,
I will work for free to knock down your house. If you need a house waterfront knocked down, DM me immediately.
Call us. We'll take care of you.
We'll do anything. So let's talk about how long you've been doing this.
So the company in 1986, me since I graduated high school.
Well, I don't know.
2010.
Okay, so you're 186 years old.
Yeah, so 160 years. Yeah.
So how many people, it's family owned, how many brothers, sisters are all involved?
It's my dad, of course, still and then my older brother. Yeah, he's still around. We joke around with him. He's never, even when he's 95, he's going to be out at job sites, and it just,
his baby.
Yeah, that's his baby. And then my brother, I have an older brother too that's involved, and that's really.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So do you have a title?
Yeah, so I kind of deal with the owners. My goal is we always look for different ways to provide value to our clients. The way we provide value to our clients is building a product better and it's more efficient. So we're building it for a better rate, and we're trying to look for every opportunity to cut time back and still maintain the quality. So you know, when it comes to that, we look at other ways of plan review being quicker. So, you know, for single family homes, most GCs don't use private provider. We use private provider a lot of the time because you're not dealing with the city. You're more, okay, private provider, if there's questions. They kind of run it like how Sunny Isles runs it as an example. Fort Lauderdale runs a good show as an example. But some cities that are a little bit more difficult, you might want to hire a private provider to do plan review and inspections because it speeds up the time.
What's a private, again, assume the consumer knows absolutely nothing about it. What's a private provider? So
a private provider pretty much acts as the city to do approve plan review, so they can approve your plans for building, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Then you just still have to go to the city for anything outside of the structure. So planning and zoning, engineering, flood is an example. But a majority of your where plans get held up are the MEPs, building and structural. So we try and speed up that process by using a private provider for it.
And that's something the consumer would pay for?
That's something the consumer will pay for.
Interesting.
So if an end user might not be so intrigued by it, but a developer will, because if you could save 3 months, the value is there.
100%. So it's like a third party hire where you don't have to have somebody in-house wasting their time with it or whatever.
And we always we look for other ways to add value too. So instead of going, you know, we try and go direct to manufacturers to lock in the best pricing. We do enough business and we do enough volume where these manufacturers want our business because we're you know, depending on the manufacturer, we're purchasing millions and millions of dollars a year with them. So you're able to get certain rates that other people can't get because you're going direct. So we're looking for every way to add value.
So when you say manufacturers, you mean windows,
like
concrete,
windows, doors. So we have a window and door company as well.
So that's just a sister company with flatbeds.
No, if the price is right. But yeah, so what we do is we have a sister company, a window and door, KMR Windows and Doors. We have a sister roofing company. So we do all of that in-house because those are big ticket items that if we could figure out a way to save money, we're going to save the money. We don't make, we buy direct though from the manufacturer.
Okay.
Yeah, which a lot of times, so what a general contractor, for an example, they'll go hire a window and door company to then go ahead and buy the windows and doors from the manufacturer.
Right.
And then the window and door company installs it, and they of course mark it up, their markup. So what we do is we eliminate this person and we go direct to the manufacturer and we have our guys install it. So we cut literally 30-40% off on windows and doors, which is, especially here in South Florida, as you know, it's expensive because they're impact hurricane rated.
Not windows and doors, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we're one of the for one big supplier down here, we're one of their largest purchasers year in, year out. So we lock in the best possible rates.
Do you just do it for your company or do you do it for other companies?
Just our company.
Okay.
Yeah, just to give us the benefit. And then we have a sister roofing company that is, but on the roofing company, they go out there and they do get other clients outside of our projects, but we're able to, of course, same thing with windows and doors. We're able to cut costs tremendously and provide the same scope of work, but at a very discounted rate.
Now, as a GC, do the people work for you, or do you hire them out? I don't even know, the electrician, the plumbers. You guys don't use drywall, do you?
Drywall, yeah. All that though is subbed out.
You do sub out a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, because that you want to get trade specific. Because if you try to do everything, of course, it's never going to come out perfect, right? So we get trade-specific guys that are hang drywall. That's all they do 5 days a week, 6 days a week.
Experts.
Yeah, and they're able to get 800 sheets up instead of 100 sheets up.
They got the tools, they got the technology, they're up on it, they're continuing educating themselves. If you're doing that yourself,
it's a system. They're doing it over 100%. And over again, so that makes a difference.
A lot of sense.
Yeah, we try and stick to our lane, which is management. So we manage the project. So our goal is to manage it efficiently. So as a superintendent, our superintendent's goal needs to be to everything falls on KMR at the end, right? Everything falls on a general contractor. So our goal is to give all of our subcontractors all the resources they need to be successful in the field. And if we could do that, we could build a successful project.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we operate.
So you're take me through your daily routine. Monday through Friday, or you?
I'm Monday through Friday. I don't work on the.
Good for you.
Sometimes I work on the weekend, but I try and take off because you need, to enjoy that, especially South Florida weather. It's yeah. So my daily, it's funny. I wake up not really knowing my schedule in a sense, because it's. My mind's always production. It's always how can we speed it up? How can we produce more? How can we get better results? So I kind of go wherever the task needs me to go, I guess, if that makes sense.
Right.
But constantly I'm always meeting with owners, meeting some of our clients, the developers and stuff. What a lot of developers like to do is they get us in early. So what we like to say, it's very important. So whether it's multifamily, a shopping center, as an example, we're doing industrial, 330,000 square feet of industrial, where they're working out a deal with, I can't say the name, but it's where you buy all your stuff from, if you know where I'm getting at. So
Gotcha.
They're working out a deal with them. So we have to build this warehouse to what they want, the heights and what they want us to build it out to. But in the meantime, we're value engineering it, right? So we know if we have to get 18-foot ceilings, okay, what's the most efficient way and what's the most cost-effective way to do so? And it's the same thing if we're building a spec home. So they have a design. Once the architect and the developer agree on a design, then our goal is to go in there early on and VE it, so value engineer it. So we're looking for ways to get that design without cutting. We don't cut corners. We don't believe in that. We go. You can't.
It'll show up.
Oh, we go above and beyond, and that's the reason. A big reason why I think my dad's been so successful. When KMR's been so successful is because we've never been in litigation, because my dad is always, you do stuff the right way. It's the old school mentality.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's better to over engineer on certain things in a sense, and what matters is what you can't see. What matters is behind the wall, 100%. You can't see, or in the ground, what you can't see. So first, it's always doing stuff the right way, because it's just the right thing to do, and it's what keeps you in business and what keeps you against.
Expected of you. I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but that's kind of what is expected of a builder. Is I can't see behind the walls. I'm the owner. I'm the buyer of the house. Whatever. I expect that to be done right. And I'm not going to get the big Surfside thing that happened over there, but you kind of have the indication that maybe that's kind of the problem. It lasted so long as a miracle was because some corners were cut. And I believe in two things. If you go the extra mile, that will show up and benefit you and your company. And if you cut corners, that will show up and obviously not benefit you or your company. So it always makes sense, and it's going to make you, and listen, owning a business is about making money. It's going to make you more money to spend a little bit more money and do it correctly. So the podcast that you're watching has been taken off and is finally growing in leaps and bounds. So I'm now opening up sponsorship. Why would you want to sponsor? Well, because you are a drywall supplier. You are a quartz countertop supplier. You are a builder, right? You want to get your name, your product out in front of a specific target market audience. Guess what? This Measure Twice, Cut Once podcast you're watching, it specifies to vendors just like you that need your product. So I'm opening up sponsorships. Feel free to contact me in any platform. The sponsorship cost is minimal compared to what you're paying if you're paying for TV commercials, Google ads, etc. And it's going to get you a much more specific audience. So contact me now for sponsorship opportunities. Measure Twice, Cut Once podcast. So for instance, quick little story about me. I'm doing a development project in Pittsburgh where we're building these small, compared to Miami, Florida, these small little houses out of the ground, right? And I told my business partner, when we hired our GC, I said, I don't care if I have to pay extra. I just want it so when we close on that property, 2 years after we close, I don't get a letter in the mail that says I'm being sued because of X, Y, or Z.
Correct.
You know, the sale isn't over at the closing table. And in Pennsylvania, we have to give a 1-year builder's warranty. The sale isn't over at the end of that builder's warranty. The sale is never over, and I don't want problems. So just say I make $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 from the build. It's not worth it to me if I have to go and pay money for litigation and time and stress and everything else.
I couldn't agree more. And it also too, it's your name and it's your brand, right? If they know, if you're the GC behind it, you want to be excited about it, but you want to be that stand behind it, right? So like if I know I built it, I don't want issues, because the last thing you want to deal with is 5 years or even 10 years down the line is it is issues. So, you know, like,
and that'll ruin your business.
Yeah.
If one developer hears that, you know, you used the wrong grade cement block and a wall caved in during a hurricane or tornado or heavy storm, whatever, I mean, your business is done.
Yeah, and that's what one thing we always use for things like waterproofing, things like caulking, we use the highest grade. So even if the architects spec a certain medium grade, those are things you always want to spend the money on. You always want to spend the money on the caulking, those type of materials are so important. I tell people, in reality, it's more important to spend money on that. Spend a little less money on your kitchen cabinets. We're not talking to reallocate costs, but because you're talking $10,000 difference versus, you know, you're spending $120,000 on your cabinets. Spend $110 and spend the extra $10 on the things you don't see, and it makes a big difference.
Oh, big time. I'm going to tell you a little story you don't even know. So I go up, when I come into town, I go up to Pelican and I fly the drone around. I just get updates for the consumers, etc. And I'm up there and I'm scaling up these ladders and flip-flops with the drone on my back. And there's some guy painting something by the windows. Yeah. And I'm like, what? I say, excuse me, what in the hell are you doing? And he's like, we have to paint, I don't know, I'm calling it paint, but I'm sure you'll correct me. It's
waterproofing, yeah.
Some sort of waterproofing that has to go out so many inches in every direction around windows that weren't even installed yet, to make sure that the water didn't penetrate. I don't know, you tell me the concrete.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, you're waterproofing those areas to make sure that no water gets in. So you're keeping it watertight.
Yeah.
And it's even, you know, sometimes we go above and beyond for things like that, as you saw.
Yeah, yeah. It was absolutely crazy. I had never heard of it, and I just thought this guy was losing his mind. He was painting cinder blocks. I was like, I gotta ask you, what in the hell are you doing? He's like, oh yeah, we do this, blah blah blah. And you know, that product, that technology is a result of there being a problem. I mean,
correct. Yeah.
Water whisking through something, you know. In Pittsburgh, there was a school, an old school, 100 years old, 100 plus years old, right? And this developer that had not a lot of experience gutted it and put condos in. And I guess he didn't do some sort of vapor barrier or whatever. And as time went on, water wicked moisture, I should say, wicked through the concrete and came through the drywall, and the paint, the latex paint, was like, you know, rippled because it was nobody could figure out why. And that's
a big issue. It's like you see that here too with stucco.
Do you?
Yeah, it's when as soon as water gets behind stucco, it starts debonding. So it starts because it starts eating away at like the bonding agent, and once it starts eating away at the bonding agent, it will slowly. That's why when you look at a building, you deal with the 558 claims. It's because a small little detail like the flashing on the roof could be the water coming down. If gravity, right? It's always going to come down. So
water always penetrates the weakest, the easiest.
It does, and what stucco is not waterproofing, right? Stucco is it's an aesthetic
cosmetic
look, you know, in a sense. So. Yeah, that's a big, so even things like prepping your wall is so important. So you're pressure cleaning, you're getting all the dust and everything out, so you have a clean surface, you're using a good bonding agent so it can adhere to it properly to avoid any issues.
I'm telling you, it's a shameless plug as well, but make sure you follow my Instagram, Brian Sells Miami, because I'm constantly doing updates on these guys' projects, and I'm asking questions, and it's fascinating to watch. He does it every day, so it's probably not as fascinating to him, but it's fascinating to someone like myself and probably you watching these 10, 20, 30, even $300,000 houses being built from the ground up, and the technology. I mean, back in the day, my Uncle Joe and, you know, Uncle Jim would have a case of beer and they wouldn't even level shit. They would just build houses that way. You know what I mean? It's come so far.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Yeah, right. So we're getting close to the end. I'm going to ask a couple questions. What is probably one of the biggest mistakes you've seen, either your company or your industry, or something that has been corrected? And what is something that is so amazing that you're proud of your industry or your company is doing to protect? Listen, I just had my last podcast. It's always about protecting the general public. As a realtor, it's drilled into our heads. Whatever decision you make as a realtor, the first thing you need to think of is, how am I possibly compromising the general public? Because buyers and sellers don't know a fraction of what realtors know. Maybe developers know a fraction of what you know, but buyers are going to be buying your homes don't know a fraction. So we are the guard, we are the police to protect the general public. So give me one mistake you've seen, and one thing that's so awesome that you're so proud of that your industry or you or your company.
I would say a mistake I see in the industry is a lot of companies try and do stuff that they shouldn't be doing. They don't wear. You should stick to your hat. Stick to your lane. Wearing your hat. A contractor is there to, if a designer and a developer have questions, it's to put a value on those questions and to put a time on those. I see a lot of general contractors make the mistake where they try and take on more than they could handle.
Right.
They take on too much instead of sticking to what you do best and just doing what you do best. And that's a big mistake I see a lot of general contractors making. So I think one thing that we're very good at is saying no. As crazy as that sounds, but if the job doesn't meet our criteria, then we won't do the job. And that's and of course, look, we all have made the mistakes of doing some projects we shouldn't have done to please a client, and you learn from it, because those clients the projects don't go as successful as they should, because it's not what you do and it's not what you are going to pay your full attention to.
Right.
Because you're going to pay your full attention to the things you focus on. So I think it's important for you, whether you're the homeowner or the general contractor, it's to understand the contractor you pick has to be suited for what the style of house you're building. Like, for instance, renovation. Like, KMR probably wouldn't be the best company for you on a renovation. There's plenty of companies that focus on renovations that could perform better results than we can, because that's what they focus on. But so it's sticking to your craft and mastering it.
Right, and you can tell that a company like this is financially secure if they're willing to say no. And that the two biggest words in most industries is trust and expertise. So you want to work with a realtor, you want to work with a builder, an architect, a developer that is financially secure, because they're not going to make decisions based on their income need. Am I working? There are a lot of realtors out there across the nation that work paycheck to paycheck. And I've done business with them, and I'm telling you, they're making decisions that are not in the best interest of the general public, because they need this deal to close.
Yeah.
So when you hire your realtor, when you hire your builder, when you hire your developer, any contract to provide a service for you, do your research, do your due diligence, make sure they're financially secure, make sure they're an expert, make sure they're trusted, make sure people will recommend them. That's why I get so aggravated when, of course I get aggravated because I lose the opportunity for a listing, but somebody hires their cousin that just got their license to list like a $2 million house. I'm thinking, that's not why you hire a listing agent. You don't hire a builder because cousin Jimmy just learned how to swing a hammer and unroll duct tape. I mean, it's just not why you do it. So you get what you pay for, as we talked about before. Give me something that you guys are really proud of your industry is doing well, whether it's South Florida or just as an industry as a whole.
It's a tough question.
Stumped you.
Yeah, got me.
How's technology coming along in your industry?
See, if you think about it, construction's kind of been the same way since the early days, right? Since our ancestors, in a sense. You go out to Egypt and you see the pyramids, in a sense. Amazing. It's still amazing stuff, and it's still, for the most part, the same material, right?
Really?
It's like mud, which is
right.
Concrete in a sense.
Yeah.
Like those type of aggregates are similar in a sense, but it's very tough to innovate the construction industry. So what you want to focus on is innovating your process in the construction industry.
That makes sense.
How can I stand out from, I guess, other general contractors is to innovate your process and not try and reinvent the wheel, I guess, if that makes sense, for building methods, because there's so many procedures and stuff in place. It's a tougher industry to innovate, but I guess that's the innovate your process, you know?
I mean, that's a good answer. If everything stays pretty much copacetic, then that's just as good as answer as anything else.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, who would be responsible for bringing some of the new technologies? Architects,
designers, and it's a long process to, if you're talking about like building methods, it's a long process for approval for building methods, you know, because there's so many like NOAs, notice of acceptance, you have to go through, processes you have to go through. So that's why, yeah, I would say, what are we proud of in the construction industry is, I mean, look what we all built here in South Florida, right? It's gorgeous when you come here.
You built Southeast Florida, so that is enough.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up, Rai. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, if you have any luxury, ultra luxury shopping centers that need built, hotels. I mean, is there anything you guys?
No, we do everything. Anything.
Airports.
Not airports, right?
Gotcha. I knew that'd be something.
Yeah, I will though if it's right, you know. But yeah, pretty much industrial warehouses, shopping centers, and then high-end spec homes, and then multifamily.
Fantastic. I'm going to put up all his contact info in the blog, wherever you're watching, his Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You get an email from me, whatever, so you can contact him directly. Like I say on my podcast, if you have any questions on any of the content that we talked about, doesn't matter if you're in Southeast Florida, Wisconsin, you know, we have a network of colleagues that we can refer you to or get answers if we don't know the answers. We want to be your resource for anything real estate related, anything construction related, and commercial, industrial, and luxury residential. So feel free to reach out. All right, thank you.
Thank you.